Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a. It's going to be probably the more challenging season to review. I think this one.
Yeah, why is that, man?
Because there's no bloody episodes.
There's just over a third of this series in existence as an actual viewable thing.
Well, is it 12 whole episodes? No, there's more than 12, isn't there?
There's about a third of it. There's about 47 episodes in total. So I think about 16 or something like that to watch.
That's not too bad.
You don't watch the episodes normally anyway, Jason. The fact that they're missing is probably in your favour.
We rely on Jason discussing what he remembers of them the first time round. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new Talking About Who. This is season 3, part 1 of about 10. Could be, maybe slightly less.
There'll be some missing.
Watch us as Telly Snap Recons. Mark Ayres is doing our sound as we speak, and Peter Purves is going to narrate us. I am Paul or P-Bal. Now remember, folks, like us, subscribe, and put comments below. James and Jason will answer. I won't because I'm frosty and aloof. I'm joined by...
Hello, it's James.
Hello, it's Jason.
You can't say that as we're just going into our intros.
It is not an actual true fact. That was a joke. I mean, if someone says something nice, I'll willingly answer if I remember. Anyway, we kick off, and we have I don't preempt this, but we have already been here once before quite recently, but we are going back again. We are going back to the Galaxy 4. Just watched it. So you didn't have a chance to do an intro last time, I don't think. So who's read the back of the Target book?
Oh no, surely you've got your Target hardback, your hardback here for Galaxy 4. You must have it somewhere handy.
I think if you recall, last time we did Doctor Who in the Galaxy 4, I had my merch pile, didn't I? I had the hardback.
Yeah.
I had my Crackerjack bundle. So I thought you can't get better than that. It's peaked, and I'm like, well,
it was quite impressive. It was like a going live quiz, where they go and you get the LP and you get this and you get that. It was very.
Yes, so Doctor Who faces what robot menaces in this story? Is it A, the Brigadier, B, the TARDIS, or C, the Chumbleys? Write the answer on a postcard and send it away to us.
Jason Becker, the TARDIS.
I like the TARDIS.
I do like the TARDIS.
Oh, God. We could just cut that into every review now. That could be Jason's contribution. We could be done with it. Every story. That could just be what
I like the TARDIS and I like the writing.
Oh, generic 4. So anyway, who has got some kind of scripted introduction for Doctor Who in the Land of the Rills? Is it James's turn?
I don't know. I'm being indicated at Jason.
He's got his fancy Galaxy 4 background, so I think he should give us the.
Although before anyone pulls him up on the comments below, we still haven't got a Margar here, have we?
I dressed up last time for the animation. I wore the wig and I did the dots on my face and everything. That's why I'm.
Well, where's your effort today, love?
Can't do it all the time. There's plenty more to come.
Okay, I'm saving myself your Trojan horse in about 10 minutes now.
It's parked up outside. So we are with the beautiful but deadly Dravins versus the ugly-looking but peaceful Reals on a planet that is quite literally breaking up. And this is really weird because we have reviewed this, but we reviewed it when it came out on the animated version, and it's I think I described it at the time as a pretty bog standard story. It was nice to have, but there's probably a lot of missing episodes in this season. There's probably other episodes we could do with getting back. But yeah, from a completist point of view, if you like to have every story, at least you've got this one as an animated one. It is pretty straightforward story. apart from the little twists, as I say, you've got the Dravins who you think are going to be, they come across and they say that they've been attacked by the Dravins. They make out that they're the innocent ones, and the Dravins, who you would think typically are quite sort of beastly looking, you would think they were the baddies, but actually it's the other way around with this one.
That's the funny thing I noticed though, actually, when the Dravins turn up, because you said about them being beautiful but deadly. There's a bit of a 60s moment, isn't there? And they say, "Oh, we're the Dravins," and Peter goes, "Oh, I'll say you are." It's kind of a bit like, all right. Stephen's got his eyes on them from the. Well, I mean, he changes his mind, doesn't he, when he realizes they're a bit high maintenance. But when they're just blonde beauties, he's very much there for a bit of Dravin, isn't he?
And would that have actually been a line spoken by Ian, possibly? Because, of course, this was written with potentially Ian and Barbara in place, not Stephen.
But Peter always says that he got all Jackie Hill and all the Barbara lines. Yeah. So maybe Barbara would have been. I mean, this could have been the first Doctor Who lesbian thing when they said we're the Dravins, and maybe Barbara going, "Yeah, I'll say you are."
It's a bit Carry On, isn't it? What's the Carry On? The one with the cabs, where she launches her own
Carry On Cabby.
Carry On Cabby. Where she launches like the glamour cabs, and you have all the sort of like pretty women, and it's like, oh wow, look at them. It's kind of that reaction, isn't it? It's that very sort of British camp humour.
Yeah, I'm sure Carry On Cabby. I'm just going to double check here because I've got the tech. I'm sure Carry On Cabby is about 1965. I don't think that's. Talk amongst yourselves whilst I look at this up. I mean, I'd have loved Amanda Barry to have turned up as one of the Dravins. She'd have had a right.
She would have fitted in right with the sort of crew, wouldn't she?
November '63. So actually, Carry On Cabby's conducive with them. So maybe this was an inspiration at the back.
It might have been. It's like
might have been.
Amanda Barry is too expensive to get in there, and no Hattie Jakes as Stephanie Beard. Oh my gosh, Hattie Jakes!
Could you imagine Hattie Jakes as that character?
They would have called her Hattie, though, wouldn't they? She could have kept the kid. That would have been it. There'd been none of this Margar nonsense. So unless it had been Hattie and they'd have given her an extra A or something. A good character there.
Going up to Stephen and saying, "I was once a weak woman." Jason, do you have anything sensible to say?
I don't know how I follow Carry On Cabby, to be honest with you. That's that's quite bizarre. I think we'll start likening all the Doctor Who stories to Carry On films, I think, as we go forward. It's interesting, actually, because you're right. We have just recently done this one as the animation, and actually went back and did a rewatch of this, not of the animation, but went back and did this almost traditionally with a bit of telly snaps and the remaining missing episode and the 6-minute clip that is there. And yeah, the animation's nice. It gives the story a little extra level, but underneath it all, the story's as dull as ditch water. It just doesn't go anywhere particularly. And it's kind of like a standard 4 episodes where not an awful lot happens. The planet blows up at the end, but in reality, you get that little bit of a who are the bad guys, who aren't the bad guys, but there's not an awful lot else going on. So it's pretty visuals with the animation, but a little bit tougher going when you actually look at the recons and the remaining episodes. So yeah, not an absolute favorite of mine, this one, I've got to be honest, to start the season off with.
Yeah, again, there's a couple of pointers. I think I always think that we sort of have our mind notion towards something being a season opener, don't we? And I think this is just Doctor Who being on holiday and it's back. Right? There isn't in the production office that kind of vibe of how do we launch this? This is going to be right. I mean, obviously they loved the Pretty Ladies. That was where the photo call was out. There's lots of lovely press shots of the Dravins. But it's sort of, it's not awful, is it? I don't think it's an awful thing to sit through. It's just a bit flat somehow. It looks flat. The design's very flat. There's a lot of sort of running on the spot to try and get a couple of meters across the studio flat. And it's strange because sometimes, and I don't know, I mean, this is going to influence a lot of this, I think, across the season. Sometimes the audio can either give or take away, and this is very difficult reviewing this season. We've got just over a third of it that we can watch. So with Galaxy 4, for so many years, it was just that little clip that we had on the Missing Years tape that Jan had saved. And there wasn't a lot to take from that. You got the Steph Bidney sort of look into the camera thing that really works quite often. But you didn't get a massive sense of it until the third episode came back. And then you see it and it's like, oh, this isn't something that's saved by the direction, or it just looks a bit cheap and small somehow.
And it did look a bit cheap. You're right. When we got that episode back, and the sort of the construction of the real spaceship with those sort of just steel frames with just a little bit of a curtain hanging around the outside of it, and the planet sets so obviously just a diorama screen at the back with some nice wooden cutout bits in front of it to try and give it that sort of planety feel. You know, it's a studio story, so it's bound to have those sort of restrictions. And the 6 or 7 minute clip we had from the first episode, it was a fairly promising start, because you had the sort of the introduction bit. But you're right, once you get into the episodes themselves, you can see that necessarily this wasn't the most expensive story. Possibly they were saving the money for something else that was bigger coming up, who knows. But no, it just falls a little bit flat, both in look and feel, I think.
I mean, I know we talked about it, but you know, the Chumblies were supposed to be the next big thing, you know, as it are. Well, most things at this point, you know, this is going to be the next big thing that we hope will take over from the Daleks, or, you know, but that doesn't really work either. And actually, I think in the animation, they're probably a little bit better than they were in the actual, you know, the constraints of the design of them in the actual show. But again, it's a story that's got a nice premise to it, but it's just done on such a tight budget that, although there are, you know, some good cast members, doesn't quite reach, you know, its potential in any way.
Well, wasn't this originally filmed as part of actually the previous season? Wasn't this a hangover from last time out?
There was an extra block that was filmed, and then it was put on. Yeah.
Because Verity's going at the end of the production block, I think. Is that not the case? So that's by that, because Maureen comes back from holiday to be fired when she starts work on the Mythmakers. Welcome back, love. Talking about, I mean, Maureen loved the Chumblies. A lot of the cast and crew, I think I said this last time we were out, they adored the Chumblies, and you know, when we did the Phantom commentary on it, and it was like, the Chumbly one, we love the Chumblies. And so that's there's a sort of kooky 60s sort of vibe to them. They are quite sweet. I mean, they are your R2D2, your BB-8. They are that sort of little alien space creature that does a little chirrupy noise and is quite sweet, and you don't really want it to get shot at or blown up. I mean, Vicky's biggest outrage, and isn't at the end, isn't it, when they say, "Oh, we'll send a Chumbly back to guard you, and then it'll destroy itself." I mean, he doesn't soften the blow, does he? But she's like, "Oh no, don't kill." I mean, they could have taken the bloody Chumbly with them, couldn't they? Imagine the Chumbly going around ancient Troy. That'd have been great. They could have hidden under. Oh, no, that's true.
It would have been like K9.
An early K9 there, that's what I was going to say.
It could have been an early comedian. It could have gone in the TARDIS at the end of Galaxy 4 and not turned up again till the Ark, when Dodo's like, hey, what's this like?
Well, it would have given Angelo Muscat a chance to go off and film The Prisoner and then come back and be in the Chumbly then, ready for the Ark.
Hey, why didn't they think these things through? William Hartnell could have had his £10 fee for it being turned up in another episode.
I like
Justice
the way
for the Chumblies.
They sort of went sort of armadillo-like when they got attacked. They sort of shut down. I quite liked that. That's quite a nice touch to them. But they're not. It's a bit like the mechanoids, when we talked about those, they're not necessarily practical design.
Is there a bit of mechanoid on these, or have I made that up? Was there something? Is the top of a mechanoid not the top?
I think there's something that's reused. Yeah, that could be it.
Isn't it the little aerial thing on the top of the head?
How about anyone who's older and wiser, or even older, just wiser? Put it down below. The Chumblies are made up. There is something that's been stolen from another Doctor Who prop. I'm 100% sure, not the whole thing, but just a bit of it.
Yeah.
But,
they have antennae, don't they? In that could well have come from that.
I mean, Brian Hodgson's living his best life with the soundscape for this. He does some lovely the Chumbly noises are all great, and I think that's kudos to him for that, because there's lots of sort of the resting noises, and there's lots of character comes through his sound, which is very sort of skillfully done. The problem is, I suppose, that this is basically the two parts of this story are that if you're pretty, you're not the good guys, and you could be ugly and still be nice.
Yeah.
And everything's going to blow up if you don't hurry up. So it's I don't know. Is it like Big Brother with a time clock? You've got to work out who's good and who's bad, and then get the hell out of there before it all blows up. That's the only thing that sort of. Otherwise, it would just be essentially 4 weeks of running from one house to another, which is sort of what this is. But then you just got to have that pressure of we will all get blown up if we don't stop running back and forth and decide which side we actually want to stop with here. How cruel.
That's pretty much what the plot is. The occasional prisoner exchange in between going from one place to another. I think in the animation they added in the battle sequence, didn't they? I don't think that was in the original version. They just explained what had happened.
Yeah, there was definitely some artistic license there, I feel.
Yeah, but again, that unfortunately sort of sums up this story, is that lack of the extra bit, the bit that makes it a little bit more, I don't know, adventurous or a little bit more thrilling. Yes, you've got the planet that's going to blow up, but let's be honest, do you really care? It's like the TARDIS crew can just get on board and go, but it is a little bit, once you get over that sort of twist in it, you really want there to be something more. You really want there to be some other reveal or some other dastardly plot or something, and it just doesn't get there.
And it just isn't, and it is a little, it's sort of lacking some adventure or some drama in there somewhere along the line. I mean, put the Dravings to one side at the minute. I mean, the Rills, they again, I think that's an opportunity where, although again we can't see it possibly because we haven't got the episodes, but they don't get seen an awful lot. We see them in the animation a bit more, but we don't see them an awful lot in the actual episode. And it almost feels like another missed opportunity for the monster perspective. We understand they live in that sort of gassy sort of environment, and they're ugly looking monsters, but they're the good guys. But I don't know that you get to see enough of them in there for them to add any sort of extra tension to the storyline, possibly.
And we don't have a huge idea of how they looked.
No, and I think they were always pictured. I always get this feeling from the telesnaps that you only ever really see them behind that screen, and it's only a head, but there was probably a full prop there, but they just didn't think it would work. And there are very few photographs at all of that monster costume at all. I can't think that there's many other than a couple of very pixelated ones of the monster behind the screen.
There's a full thingy. He looks a bit like Jabba the Hutt, doesn't he? There's a full shot. How well that looks in motion
on the cheap set. On the cheap set.
Well, I also sometimes sort of feel, because I know Doctor Who fans, not all of them, because I mean, they like to disagree on things. Derek Martinez's direction, I've never been a huge fan of Derek's directing. I think he works all right on the film. He does all right on the film sequences that you can see in this. And obviously Spearhead from Space, he does a great job, and that's all on film. But I'm never entirely convinced. I mean, Ice Warriors, there's film sequences, and the stuff in the lovely. The rest of it, he gets a tight 4 shot and he's happy with it. It's in focus, and we can all go to the bar at the end of the evening. So I'm never entirely sure whether he's just safe and competent, but a bit lacking. And I know, this is 1965, Doctor Who studio drama for a Saturday tea time. It's not the Wednesday play. You just got to get it in and get it done and get it on budget. And sacrilege all these years later to say that. But I think there are some directors who come at it and they've got a much better sense of filming drama and how it looks and how to make it a bit more exciting. Because I think the script and the story are quite simplistic, but if it shot a bit better and looked a bit better, it would lift. Because I don't think there's anything bad in any performance, and Stephanie Bibby's amazing. I think as Margaret, I think there's lots to really like here, but it just feels like you've got all the great ingredients and you've sort of just thrown them in a bag rather than a mixing bowl, and it's like
he did come into it quite late on in the production, because obviously Mervyn Pinfield was due to direct this one, and then Mervyn was taken ill, I think, in the early stages of this story, so Derek stepped in. But I think I agree with you. I think he's done quite a number of stories over the time, and I think you're right. I think Safe Pair of Hands, I think it's a great summary. I think you're right. He did a fantastic job of the filming on Spearhead and filming bits. I agree with you. I think, Ice Warriors I like as a story, so I kind of, I don't mind that too much. But no, from my perspective, I agree with you. I think Safe Pair of Hands probably in this instance.
Well, I'm sure you didn't like the Ice Warriors when we did the review of it, Jason Clifford.
No, I think I gave it a reasonable score.
4.
Yeah, it's a 6-part story, but there's only 4 around, so I'm giving it 4.
No, I definitely wouldn't have given the Ice Warriors 4. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I would have done.
I really like the writing.
I am never going to live that one down, am I? Let's be honest, never going to live it down.
Anyway, so do we have any exotic facts which you may or may not have shared, or maybe you shared them before now you verified them?
Yeah.
You checked back and you found, oh, maybe that wasn't true.
It's going to happen one day. I'm going to have to come back and go, right, on episode 2, I said this.
How long before your black art stories become the facts out there in the world?
Beyond the next few Blu-rays. I hear this story. It'll become part of Doctor Who lore. We talked a few of the ones that I had on here. We've already sort of mentioned. It's strange, and we'll talk about the next episode. But then you get this little break, don't you? So at the end of this episode, Vicki sprains her ankle, and then that comes up again in 2 stories' time. The stock music was performed by, it's in French, but it's Les Structures Sonores. And they did, some of that music was used for the Web Planet as well.
They were. That was one of the things that Verity originally thought that she could do the theme tune, didn't she?
Yeah, that's right.
Jason's shaking his head like he's never heard any of this before.
I haven't heard that actually about that they could have done the theme music.
They were an avant-garde sort of music outfit, weren't they? And they decided it perhaps wasn't quite commercial enough for a Doctor Who theme tune, I believe.
You learn something new every day.
I think the sad thing about Doctor Who and the Galaxy 4 in some ways is that if someone said tomorrow that they found episode 2 or they found, I don't know how thrilled I'd be. And that's awful, because I mean, obviously I would be thrilled, because anything to come back, any clip or whatever, is amazing and it's lovely. And I'm glad that we have an episode of this, and hurrah for, that being kept and all that stuff. But there is just that thing that when you come to sort of thinking about what you're going to score it and what you think about it, you think, well, if someone tomorrow said they found an episode from season 3, it's a brave man that would be like, I hope it's episode 4 of Galaxy 4. I really want to see what that looks like, because I don't think it's going to look very much different week in, week out, Doctor Who in the Galaxy 4. I don't think there's an amazing sequence that we need to see here that's cruelly lost in time.
Yeah, I'm sort of feeling the planet exploding is probably just a shaky camera somewhere along the way.
Fade to white or something. Yeah. I mean, I suppose the bit's quite nice in this that you don't entirely get on audio. The bit where Marga kills the other Dravin, I mean, that's quite gory looking. You know, when she's got the blood on the face and she shoots her. And that probably, you know. But I think just in my heart of hearts, I don't feel if you'd only got room in your back set for 2 episodes in that Nigerian vault that you'd be swooping on the Galaxy 4s that are on the shelf. Do you know what I mean?
I'd pray that it is one of the episodes that have got the really bad animation, just so we can just say.
Hey, if it was Jason in the archive with a backpack, he'd put episode 3 of Galaxy 4 in and be thrilled when he got back with it. Look what I found, and I got the first episode. An unearthly child. We can see the first episode now. Oh. Anyway, he's just had a swig of his gin and orange now in contempt.
It's not a gin and orange, honestly, it's not.
Okay. Do we have any scores then for Doctor Who and the Galaxy? I think Jason's going to give it 4, or he's going to wait and see what James is. Or he's going to wait and see what James is going to make it Galaxy 4.5.
Well, do you know what? You have
because
just given away my pun.
What's that, James?
I was going to say, you've just given away my pun, because I did score this 4.5. It's not the worst story, but it doesn't quite even get to average, unfortunately. There's so many things where you just think, well, if you'd just done this at this point, or if you just had that, or if you had some other twist or something, because it just plods along. And, you know, if it wasn't for the fact that the planet was going to explode, I'm pretty sure the TARDIS crew would have gone, yeah, well, see ya. Yeah, it's kind of like,
Stephen wanted to go swimming.
I know he wanted to go swimming, but there's nothing.
There's no real sign of water. Maybe in the existing episode 1 that is like a massive sort of
massive lake.
Massive lake.
Yeah,
film only, massive lake. It's an insert, and we instead of getting him in his speedo, we got him in a little roll neck, and we were denied that.
What we don't know is that they went to Ealing and they shot in the big water tank there that they normally film James Bond on. For all we know, that could have happened.
It was probably a scene where he was having a dip while, you know,
Oh, James, I thought you were scoring, not giving your facts.
I've diverted myself. So yeah, so I gave Galaxy 4 4.5.
Now
please don't start the room that they filmed for this at the film tank in Ealing. Please, no.
That'd be like there was a whole underwater sequence we never got to see.
It's not a fact, even if James says it's a fact.
I've got to say I laughed a lot when you suggested the score I was going to give this story, because you actually aren't wrong. Genuinely not wrong. Look, there it is. Okay, as I said, it's a little bit dull, this one. It's not got an awful lot going on. Bit of a running around in the studio, some very cheap looking sets, and the Chumbly design that I think's okay, actually. But it's not quite Dalek, is it? Let's be honest.
He's a Chumbly lover.
Regulars are on reasonably good form, even though it's a sort of slightly difficult script for them, particularly as necessarily it wasn't written for Stephen, and Peter Purves is well noted for not having a lot of love for this story, because he didn't feel he was very well treated in it. But I'm afraid the surprise has been spoiled, and Galaxy 4 with 4 episodes gets a 4 from me.
You've done it the wrong way around. You're half less than James.
Yeah.
Do you want us to redub that, or?
No, I'm definitely on a 4 with
When this
one.
goes out on air, it'll be P-Bal's voice going, James, what's your score? 3.5.
The mouth will move right around. Well, anyway, that seemed strangely chaotic. I used to not mind this one. I used to listen to it in my little CD player in the office, and it's quite handy as a background and all that stuff. I think if we found more of it, my score might drop, which is slightly the reverse of where we're at in the real world. But I like, what we've got isn't awful. I'm not willing to just batter it for the sake of battering it. And I think Stephanie Bibney is really good in this. And I think, again, maybe if we saw more of her, maybe she people would think more of Margot as a thing. So I gave Galaxy 4 5. See?
We're the stingy Marys today.
Oh, it's a reputation we've got, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose it's like pantomime. Cinderella's always got the ugly sisters, hasn't she?
I'm saying nothing.
Anyway, before I go to the ball, that brings Galaxy 4 out on 13.5.
Well,
I don't think it's going to be a winning score. I'm just, because I was quite psychic Sally there with knowing your scores. I'm just wondering whether my psychic Sally vibes are going to say that is not a season winning total, unless it was season 20. That is not a season winning total.
no, it's a lot still to come in this season yet, but no, I don't think 13.5 is going to win it somewhere along the line.
So our next story is Mission to the Unknown, or Dalek Cutaway. I mean, I'm not going. As the kids, I'm not going to lie here. If I had to pick an exciting title for a story, Mission to the Unknown is better than Dalek Cutaway. It's kind of like what one sounds like something that you've left over and it's the scrapings, and one sounds like an exciting prelude. Okay, so this must be Jason's turn to introduce that.
Well, it is. You're quite right, and we're on.
Be longer than the episode.
We're on the planet Kemble, and it isn't quite what we know in the world of Doctor Who, because we have a standalone one-part story without any of the season regulars. So it's quite a departure, really, and I would imagine watching it as an audience member the first time round, you'd have been a little bit bamboozled as to why the Doctor and the companions didn't turn up. At least at some point during this episode, but it stands well as a good introduction to what's around the corner for us. And of course, the viewers at the time wouldn't have known this, but see, it leads out into Dalek Master Plan, which is a great thing. And we'll be reviewing that next time out. But this I think is an interesting concept. They've clearly got a bit of a gap in studio somewhere along the line. So they think, we'll fit something in here, and it works. And it's actually Verity's last, Verity's last production credit on this particular story. So you kind of get the sort of closure of a loop there. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. Daleks on the planet Kemble with the Space Security Corps. And, at the end of the day, Terry Nation was clearly lining America up, which we know about, and that's part of the reason why this got its airing, I suppose. So, yeah, an interesting diversion from the normal run-of-mill Doctor Who episode that we had back in 1965.
I think it's interesting because William Hartnell is credited for this episode, even though he doesn't appear, because it was written into his contract that he would always have the credit for each episode. But none of the others had that in their contract. So you get Doctor Who, and then you get all of the rest of the people from the episode. And you're right. I like this episode in the fact that it is this prelude to the bigger story. It's a departure from what you've seen before, and I'm glad it wasn't just like part one of the Dalek story, because I think it serves its purpose better with having another story in between. So the TARDIS crew have sort of left the previous story. Then we have this cutaway, if you like, but you have this separate story, and then you pick up again with them in the next one with the Mythmakers, completely oblivious to what has been going on sort of behind the scenes. So I like that idea. I also like it's a bit, it reminded me of a completely different franchise, but it reminded me a little bit of Rogue One from Star Wars, where you have, that everybody dies essentially. All of the sort of crew that are trying to get off the planet, the ship gets blown up. Quite a lot happens in the one episode. There's quite a lot of peril. There's quite a lot of tension in this one solitary episode, considering what we've just come from. Jason was so excited he left. It's gone already. So you have this.
No, I'm not. I'm still here.
Thank you. So you have this sort of, this standalone episode where, as the audience, what's going on, but they don't manage to, at this point, you think that they haven't managed to notify, Earth about this coming together of these superpowers, of which we've not really heard about any of them other than the Daleks. But it's kind of, I think it's a really ingenious thing to do. To just whet the appetite, and again, you'll be watching the next week, going, "Oh, where are the Daleks? What was happening? Why did we just have this one episode?" And then, like 4 or 5 weeks later, you've got that. By the way, here's the story. So, I like it.
Do you not think, in some ways, though, that asking the audience to wait a month before picking that up again is a bit strange, though. Because essentially you have all the setup, and the Daleks are going to invade the galaxy. Oh my God, what's happening? This is mega. They're the only people that know are dead. This is awful. This is the end of days. We're in ancient Troy.
Yeah,
What a palaver. I mean, at what point? Because I mean, it's twofold here. Firstly, at what point in the next story were people thinking, well, hang on, when are the Daleks turning up? Because this doesn't. They were in it last week invading, and now they're not. And now that, it feels like it was not resolved, or it's strange. Whereas if it had gone straight into the Daleks master plan, you'd have had the build-up of it being, crikey, this is what's happening, and the viewer would have known straight away, because they would have seen last week. They wouldn't have had a month with the Greeks and the Troys, and I think to a modern audience, and now we watch it back and we know that this is the full season run or whatever. I think that's our modern sensibility can enjoy that more. I think as a viewer, I mean, I wasn't a viewer in 1965, but I mean, for a kid watching this with the family, that must have been strange, because if this episode gets you geared up and excited for what's to come, there's a strange sort of month, and it's not like it's a brief gate, it's a month, and you've got a whole story in between where it's like, this has got nothing to do with what we've just had.
What was it like?
I don't know.
What was it like waiting a month, Jason? Do you remember?
Come on, when we come to the next one, Jason can tell us what it was like at the fall of Troy. So we've got all the insider info here. Oh no, the horse didn't look anything like that.
I think that the problem is, though, that the opening story was so drab. I understand what you mean, because it is a long time, and we often review these things through the eyes of, we binge watch them in one go, and they would have been spaced out over a number of weeks. But I think the first story was so pedestrian. It's like, oh, we're back for a new series. Here, have this. Almost this needed to be right at the front to say, we're going to have Daleks back soon, because that's, at this point, this is what people were wanting. They wanted the Daleks back. They wanted to see more of them. So I kind of get the tease and sort of like say, well, yeah, we're going to drop a little Dalek interlude into here, and then we're going to make you watch a historical, and then we're going to bring the Daleks back. It's kind of like, I don't mind that. I can imagine, though, that you're right. There would have been people at the time going, what's just happened? We saw at the end of the last story, the Daleks were about to invade. But I think, for me, I think it's a very clever thing to do, to keep the audience with you, to sort of say, we're lining something up, stay with us, we'll come back to this.
But I'm not entirely sure that's what they would have done, though, would they? Did they essentially say the Daleks are back in 4 weeks?
No, they didn't. They didn't say that. I
think it was in the press. I think the press had trailed that there was going to be an epic Dalek story coming. I mean, it's a different world, isn't it? Nowadays, it would, people would be spending the week filming in an alleyway to take the photos of it. Then it was just a show that came on every week, and you either watched it or you didn't. If you were out playing with your mates, you missed it. Or it's such a different world. But I know that there were cuttings at the time say that there was a big Dalek story that was being planned, and I mean, this is essentially, I think, only in existence because they still owed an episode from Planet of Giants being an episode short, sort of way back at the start of the block. I wonder with this in terms, because there's that episode of the Spacefire, episode 1 of Spacefire, isn't there, where it takes about 20 minutes for Doctor Who, Zoe and Jamie to turn up. I wonder whether people were sat there for the whole of this thinking, I wonder when Doctor Who's going to turn up and save these space guys. When's he going to kind of turn up and save, and then 20, the credits roll. It's like, Doctor Who's been written out of Doctor Who. It's like Taggart 40 years too soon. What's happened? It's interesting because I again, people people hang a lot on saying, the Radio Times billing said this or that. I still think there weren't a lot of people that bought the Radio Times for their listings like that. It took me quite a few years as a child to sort of coerce into getting the Radio Times. I think this notion of people reading cast lists in the Radio Times is quite a finite, especially this early doors with Doctor Who and Doctor Who fandom. I think it would have just been a very strange thing. People would have been like, I think Doctor Who didn't turn up this week. He didn't save the day. What's happened to her? Yeah, it would have been, I think, and it's entitled Doctor Who, and they would have had all the lead up to the episode. That have, and you're right, they'd have been 10 minutes in thinking, where is he? Because it hadn't been done before. And I suppose that is what makes this one a little bit more unique, though, isn't it? Because it is the first time that's ever been done. So it's not like they've gone away on holiday, and the companions are carrying the story. There isn't any of the regulars in this, and I can only imagine at the time it would have confused the audience slightly.
They put out a press release saying he was actually dressed up as a Varga plant. He's in the background somewhere.
The Varga plant to me is very interesting with this. I think, is this the first instance we have of actual bodily horror in Doctor Who? Is this the first time it goes, the creature's not going to kill you, it's going to turn you into one of them? It's sort of that's the scary thing about Cyberman, isn't it? They're not going to kill you, they're going to turn you into one of them. And is this the first sort of thing where we have Doctor Who where it transforms you, doesn't it? I mean, it first of all, it turns you a bit psychopathic, but then it basically turns you into a crinoid 20 years earlier, 10 years earlier, I suppose.
And again, it's such a dark concept, isn't it? Because the Daleks have brought these plants from Skaro. They've cultivated them. They've brought them to this planet to make, so that if anyone tries to sort of like the Space Corps people have done, they've landed to try and find out what's going on. They're, an extra level of protection, to kill off anyone who might try and spy on them. That is quite a sort of dark. I mean, it's not like the Daleks don't have any protection on their own. It's quite capable of exterminating everything, but we'll get some vicious plants in just in case.
Well, I've got a rose called Hot Chocolate by the front door, which is really thorny, and it's out the front to basically ward off anyone that I don't want to see. So cut yourself on that one that you will. Or now in the back garden, I might hurt myself.
I think it was. I think it's quite nice that we essentially have almost been able to watch the episode by the remake that was put together by the University of Lancashire, and actually to go back and redo the episode with the sort of techniques of back in the day, done almost as a fan recon essentially. I think was terrific endeavor to undertake, and actually brings to life a story that we probably aren't going to see, because it wouldn't be one that they would have saved, even if they were in the point of saving stuff back then, because it was a one-off essentially. But I like the fact we've got something that could be akin to being close to the original episode, that we can sit down, watch and enjoy. And I think that helps to add to the enjoyment of this episode a little bit as well, I feel.
There was an animated version made by Ian Levine.
Yeah, we don't talk about that though.
But you're right. I went to university in Preston, so I know there's a huge sort of team in there that do something every year. They do some sort of production, and you're right, they went back and they did all the same sort of production values as it would have been in the 60s, the same, they tried to recreate everything as it was, and it is again, watch this, and I know, because we don't know that much about it, you could imagine that this was the episode. It's not too difficult to sort of see that this is exactly how it would have played out. I know it didn't have the same actors in it, but it is, as far as we know, painstakingly recreated to be as close to the original as you could get, and you think that it's tantalizing because you have that for this episode, but then you've got 12 episodes of Dalek Master Plan where we have so few of those episodes. But
we've got a quarter of them. A quarter of them. How many have we got of the Mythmakers? None. I think on ratios, I think the Dalek Master Plan is doing all right.
But I like the story, and I like the recreation.
Do you like the script?
No, Jason likes the script.
I like that it was done on a typewriter. The funny thing is, actually, because I think the only thing we've had close to sort of space opera sort of before this season is Sensorites is sort of the futuristic spaceship and all that, and everything else hasn't really gone into that. Daleks obviously are, but it hasn't done the space thing. So we've just come from Galaxy 4, which is a sort of space fight, and it's in a different galaxy. And now we're into this mission, which is again references being in the different galaxy, and the Daleks invaded us 1,000 years ago, and now they've disappeared to the outer galaxies. So it's this strange sort of new thing, seemingly. The Doctor Who's now Earth's a very small place within a universe, within the galaxy, within many galaxies. It's spreading its wings, and whereas previously, obviously, the initial thought of not having the monsters and either, now we've had the beautiful alien Dravins and the Rills, and now we get the alien delegates who they've obviously had a great time picking out what they're all going to look like. Well, they do slightly change when they come back, but it's interesting that Doctor Who's gone a bit space opera, actually, to an extent. I mean, it's not the week after, but it seems very much that have they decided that what's working here is the science fiction, is the alien? Do we just take this and ride with it?
I mean, you still get the bit at the end where they say, right, we're going to invade the solar system and we're going for Earth. It's like, 1,000 years, they're still a bit bitter. Just like...
Susan might still be rebuilding it. We don't know how long she lasted. Don't. I mean, David would have long gone after 1,000 years, but she could still be merrily regenerating. She might be Rusty Lee by this point. We don't know. Don't. I'm here for it if she is. I'm bloody here for it if she is. The continuing adventures of Susan.
They've done it. I was going to say, Big Finish have done that though, surely, have they not?
Oh, I think did she do something with Paul McGann and Paul McGann's son?
Possibly. I know there was a trailer recently, which is basically Susan just after the Doctor had left. They were rebuilding Earth after the Dalek invasion, but I haven't listened to it.
Well, anyway, the Daleks didn't get anywhere close to invading the Earth, did they? So, well, they probably did in some scheme, or I suspect Dalek timelines might be even more problematic than a unit timeline. Because you go, hang on, so 1,000 years after they invaded Earth, they did so they hadn't been heard of for 1,000 years. But so where would the Daleks fit into? Oh no. Having said that, you can see the Terry Nation, everyone wearing their little pastel spacesuit, Space Corps kind of thing, and that works well. Actually, you can see from this, you'd have got a series. It would have been a sort of dry American series, which people love, like Star Trek, don't they? So it would have been a dry sort of sci-fi thing, but I think it could have worked.
He wrote, he wrote a solo Dalek series called The Destroyers, or the pilot was called The Destroyers, which was never actually made. But that's what he wrote. That's what he went and he said, "Look, we can do this," but it never went anywhere.
Although they did appear in the second Dalek annual.
The Daleks did. I'd like to hope they did. Otherwise, that'd have been a really dreary read, wouldn't it? The second Dalek annual. There's no Daleks in it.
There was a Trojan horse in it.
I was.
couple of Chumblies on the back cover, but they didn't get a story either.
I may have been referring to the Space Corps, but
only May, dear viewer, only May. I think Edward D'Souza is really good in this. I think obviously he's a film actor and he's come in and he's the lead in this and he's amazing. And it's a little bit of a shame that nobody thought he's done a really good turn in this. We should bring him back for something else or have a late. It just seems a bit because he's he wasn't adverse to the television, was he? He did Sapphire and Steel. He did Sapphire and Steel, folks. So it's a bit of a shame there was never a sort of return for a later story because he's a really good actor and he does a great turn in this because it does rely on him and Jeremy Burnham, or Jeremy Bradley recently departed this coil, but again amazing and it's a lovely pairing and there's a lot of reality to that and it's quite gritty because it isn't Doctor Who and his plucky friends coming into this and saying what's going on. It is a bit more kind of SAS, I suppose, for want of a SAS in space, isn't it? There's this, we're on a mission, it's a suicide mission, here's what's happening kind of thing. The Varga plant's taking your lovies.
And the alien delegates are great. They get a great introduction in this episode as well, don't they? And then we don't really see a huge amount of them, I don't think, because we go through Dalek Master Plan.
You sort of you get them at the very beginning, don't you? As they're sort of coming together and arguing and sort of bitching about what's going on. But yeah, they're slightly
basically
changed.
One of these videos.
Yeah. But yeah, they change, don't they? There's some changes with them by the time we get to see them again.
So do we have any exotic facts based on truth or this is like Would I Lie to You, isn't it? Do we have
It was a lie.
We'll be getting the viewer to vote on these at some point.
We've talked about most of them. The only thing, apparently, this Mission to the Unknown and Dalek Master Plan were the only 60s stories that were offered to this for sale in the US, but they were not bought.
I think they tried to sell them some of the early stuff, but
yeah,
America wasn't going to go for it. America would never, and I know, it's hindsight, but America made long runs of glossy film series. Like when the Avengers was heading to America, that was when it upped to film. It was they wouldn't have taken the sort of the Honor Blackmans. It had to look more expensive. Everyone has to have, like The Saint. I mean, I think Annika's handbag cost more than it cost to hire her for Doctor Who. It's ridiculous, the money that went around those ITC and those big shows. So whilst we look back with horror to say, well, why did they not want the censor rights? The reality is that they were either producing their own series at a higher sort of production standard. I'm not saying that there were better shows, but at a higher sort of spec. So to take poor old cheapy Doctor Who would have probably been a bit of a shock to the system for them.
Yeah.
Don't hate me in the comments below for that, though.
It's true.
That's true. That's true.
But that was it. That's all I had.
I don't think, because was Mission to the I can't remember. So Mission to the I presume was bought by Australia with Daleks Master Plan. No, it would have been rejected with the censors, wouldn't it? It would have gone there to be checked out.
No, they only sent the 12 episodes or the 11, well, the 11 episodes potentially, because of course we had a Christmas special. But no, I don't believe that this one was actually sent out alongside Dalek Master Plan. I think the Australians took a look at Dalek Master Plan and thought, nope, don't want that, sent it back, or junked it, or did what they did with it.
It wouldn't have made any sense whatsoever if they showed this one and then
it was offered for sale. So in Australia did take anything that was offered for sale to check out. So I think it was checked out. But given that it's basically about people being bodily mutilated by plants or shot or anything else, or discussing, I think the themes and the horror, which is why they rejected Master Plan, I think it would have basically been the same thing of, well, if you cut the bits of people saying kill, 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 or being killed out of Mission to the Unknown, it'd have been about the same length as Dimensions of Time, which, as we know, dear viewer, is the optimum length for an episode of Doctor Who. Yeah. So,
pity the Australians didn't take it, and we might still have a copy of it today.
Well, we don't know that there isn't still a copy out there somewhere waiting to come back.
That's how the rumours start.
Yes. Might be in Wigan as we speak. Okay. Are we going to score Doctor Who and the Dalek Cutaway? Or Carry On Varga, if we're going to give it another...
Bernard Bresslaw stars as a Varga plant in this epic.
Who would cast Bernard Bresslaw as an unseen monster where you can't tell who it is under the costume? Who'd do that? It's just nonsense.
That's Doctor Who for you. Okay, so the Dalek Cutaway. I kind of like that's growing on me, the Dalek Cutaway, rather than Mission to the Unknown. It's a one-off of its kind, and subsequently an interesting experiment. Actually, a good prelude into what would have been the 12-week epic that we've got to come. Obviously not having it, so we can't really judge it on its original visuals, but there's some good acting in this, and it is quite a gory subject matter, as we've said through the course of this conversation. But it stands alone as a single piece of Doctor Who history, and I, for one, quite like it, and it gets a 6 from me.
I like it, so I'm giving it a 6.
He didn't say what sort of 6, though, did he?
No. Come on, you normally put something at the front of it.
Okay, it's a single 6. For a single.
If it were a double 6, it would be 66. Could be a seedy 6, like the thorn that comes into the hand. A thorny 6.
Thorny 6.
A cutaway 6.
So,
depends if James is going to score it a 6 now, doesn't it?
6.5 is on its way. I can feel it.
I don't sort of put a prefix in front of my scores. It's just my score. I honestly do like this. I think it's a great idea. I think it's very much ahead of its time, and in the you would see more modern shows do something like this. Again, I think, as you said, P-Bal, I think because the audiences would be very different now, you could get away with that. You could drop an episode like this because they're probably not going to, they could probably binge watch the next 4 episodes in the one night and then carry on watching it. But I think it's a really interesting sidestep into doing something completely different, and I think for me it works, and I think it's very well recreated, but I would have enjoyed, I think, the original just as much. So I actually scored it 7.5, because I just think it's a really nice, just it's self-contained as an episode as well. It doesn't, you know, you as the audience know the peril, you know what's coming, but you're not there at the end sort of like left on a cliffhanger in the fact that all the characters are dead, but you know that the Daleks are up to something, and I like that. So there we go.
We got a half, and I think my psychic Sally of having a half there. Fine, no one's crossed my palm with silver, have they? Yeah, I am merrily betwixt the two of you. I do think it's good. I think it is a very pacey 25 minutes, actually. There isn't a kind of sag. It doesn't feel like a filler, because it could very easily feel like we've got 25 minutes, what we're going to do, you know, Age of Destruction. So I scored Doctor Who and the Peril of the Varga. Oh, that's a good one, isn't it? Just made it up. I scored it 7.
There we go.
Which brings it in at 20.5, which is that's 7 points clear of Galaxy 4.
That's because more happens in 25 minutes than the whole of Galaxy 4.
Are we saying sack the regulars and just do one-part stories? Is that where we're going?
You would never have believed it was the same team that did Galaxy 4 that ultimately
I know, it was the same production block, wasn't it? It was filmed at the end of it.
Yeah, so it's
totally different.
So anyway, we now head off into the distant past for the Myth Makers. Not the interview tapes that used to come out on VHS. Not those Myth Makers.
That's what kept coming up on YouTube. I was like, oh, that's...
But I'm expecting Daleks.
So you probably are going to put that in your review that you'd like the Daleks in this. And they'd be like, oh, awkward. I like that they all hid in a Dalek. So hang on, I'm trying to think this back now. So this is going to be James's turn to introduce. Is that correct?
Go first on this. So the blurb I wrote was never look a Trojan horse in the mouth. There's worse puns to come. So it's goodbye to Vicki, hello to Katarina in this entirely missing story set in ancient Troy. And I did try, I know you always take the mick out of me because I don't do telesnap reconstructions and things like that, but I did try, and the one that I watched was so horrendously bad I had to give up after 5 minutes. So all I know is what I have read about this story, because I just couldn't cope with it. It was just... so yeah, so we've got the TARDIS crew arrive. We've still got Vicki with her sprained ankle from the last but one story, so we've got that sort of continuity of she's still struggling, and they arrive in Troy in the middle of a battle that's been going on for about 10 years. They get mistaken for being different gods, so the Doctor gets mistaken for being God. He plays up to that. In some ways it reminds me a little bit of, without the comedy, with the Raymans, with the sort of, you know, false identity and the sort of things that happen. But yeah, it is, it's a historical story.
I just want to say, just early doors here, that every time you look down, you just have a horse's ass coming out the side of your head, and it's really distracting. The positioning on the photo is really awkward, and then it's like, it's better. Well, you know, who am I to say? But that was what I slightly, because I'm attention span of a gnat, I just kept thinking, oh, horses. Anyway, thank you for the introduction there.
You're very welcome.
There is a strange animated reconstruction on the YouTube. there must be there is a loose canon one, which is it's not telesnaps, because by this point the telesnaps are not being paid for, folks. We've got no visuals, and they're not paying for telesnaps either. So visual recreations of these are incredibly difficult, and kudos to the team that do make them.
Agreed.
And that's a big skill, I think, to assemble from very limited. So big shout out for Derek for his hard work doing those. So yeah, this is our first entirely missing. There are a couple of very flickery, filmed off the screen in Australia, 8mm clips on this. So you can see Vicki stepping out the TARDIS, and then a couple of bits. But other than that, you've sort of got to just treat it maybe as an audio, and rely on Peter's narration when you listen, which is difficult with this, because I think there's a couple of things which play against it as an audio. Is that because everyone's got a Greek name, it's a slight head to get around who's who to start with, and you have to concentrate, otherwise it's a bit sort of okay with it. And secondly, because it is a comedy, I mean, underneath some very dark stories to play out here, there's comedy in there, and there's a lot of comedic elements, and there are different points where I can hear someone has delivered a line and there's a look, and I can tell that there's a look there. And comedy is so much in performance and in your reaction, because imagine the Romans, if you couldn't see Nero's face, if you just got the dialogue and the reaction and the music, it would be about 80% down on your levels with this. So this is slightly brutalized by having pretty much zero visual to help it along.
And this is one, I think, where we do miss it. And you're right. I think because we don't have that, and because we're lacking any kind of material really to try it, I mean, they did do a fantastic job. It, for me, just falls a little bit flat, and it shouldn't do, because actually I think this is one that would certainly be very enjoyable, I think, to watch as for existing episodes. The humor does fall down slightly, and whereas I maybe commented that I felt that the humor was too slapped on a little bit in the Romans for my liking. I don't think it is in this one, and then because of the subtleties of it, it is kind of lost. So it's a shame, because there is a decent story behind this. It's based factually on an actual sort of, we believe, historical event, and it's in true historical fashion for Doctor Who of its time. And I would imagine probably quite nicely done from a studio perspective. The costuming would have been really nice. It would have, would have had plenty of action with the fighting sequences and various bits and pieces. But all of that's sort of robbed from us, really, which is a shame. So, yeah, I think a decent story, but just unfortunately lacking visuals means we're perhaps not getting all of it that we would probably get.
I think the comedy still does resonate. Max Adrian is having a whale of a time with it, I think. And I absolutely adore Frances White. Is so poisonous in this. It's incredible. There's such a spit and such a venom to it, and she hates Vicki something bad, and she goes for it, and it's that beautiful measuring of performance between being too big and not going enough, and it's incredible. And again, it sort of slightly breaks my little Doctor Who heart, which is somewhere down in the depths there, that because this is something you can't easily just put on the VHS or whatever. What the kids do nowadays. They downstream it on Netflix, don't they? I think that's the correct terminology, downstreaming, I believe, on the tennis pitch.
Before they privatise it, popularly.
Politicising this. Doctor Who's not a political show. So because it's not an easy thing to just throw on, people probably don't remember or acknowledge it in the same way. that you do with the Aztecs. I think because the Aztecs, you can just put the DVD on and you can watch it and it's great and you can enjoy it and that's lovely. But if you want to experience the Mythmakers, you can put the vinyl on, or you can hunt down a reconstruction. Because even the reconstruction, the loose cannon sort of telesnap-eek, not telesnap, the photo recon, isn't something that's sort of out there. It's something you've got to hunt for. And so actually accessibility, this story, means that it's not something people talk about an awful lot. And it's such a shame, because actually I really, really, really enjoyed doing this one. Frances, I think her performance, people would absolutely rave about it if they could see it, because it is such a strong performance. And also the other beautiful thing is, I think the Vicki thing, when she transformed into Cressida and Troilus, well, their romance is actually very well set up. She doesn't just see them all jumping out the horse and go, do you know what, I've decided I'd probably like to live in Troy. How's that sound? You don't have that awkward hand behind, I'm marrying Andred. There's none of that. So she does build, and there's a lovely little bit in the prison cell where she's sat and she's eating and can't talk to her, and there's just lovely bits, and given how good Maureen is in all the other sort of runs up, how subtle the performance would have been and how those little things would have been played out. So it's sort of crushing that it's well done and her exit is well handled. I mean, if you look at the mythology of the characters that I'm not quite sure how we're expected to think that Vicki's life played out after. It's open to interpretation.
Yes.
I mean, how Cassandra ended up is an awful thing. If anyone wants to delve into the mythology of poor Cassandra, which I'm sure both of you have. The silence. The comedy element of them all thinking she's balmy and not listening to the thing is a sort of a comic spin on the myth of the character, because the character, it's like a Blue Peter education for you, everyone. Cassandra was gifted the power to see the future, to tell truthful prophecies. The god Apollo thought that would get into her knickers. She didn't want to know about it. So he added a caveat that she would always tell truthful prophecies, but nobody would believe her. So the sort of joke within the story, whether they're just sort of ignoring her because she's a bit ranty and mad, is because people did think she was a bit ranty and mad. And then obviously her prophecies came true. But they don't show you her being raped in a temple and then dragged away and murdered with her new husband. They don't show you any of that. They're dark, but they're not that dark. But anyway,
Australia would have none of that.
Themes. Oh no! The marker pen would be like, no. Suggest cut at 40 seconds after title sequence, and then back in again for the end, the credits.
All that we'd have left is what's on those 8mm cine clips, probably.
That's it. That's what.
But the irony is, if Australia had that much of a hack at some of them, we still have the clips. They should have butchered them more.
The whole of season 3 in a 25-minute episode.
I mean, joking aside, the other thing is that you can come away from. I mean, I like a bit of Greek mythology anyway. I like all that business. How much is history? How much is myth? How much is all that sort of. But you can come away from this and go, well, I think, what is the story of, and what is the story of, and it's very clever. It's actually a very intellectual story. It's funny and it's dark, but there are so many different layers to take away from this, and I think that's incredible. Unfortunately, I feel sure that the kids at home, when this came on after the Vargaplants and the Daleks, must have been thinking, it's like being back at school. What's going on?
Is there a Dalek going to come out the horse? Where is the Dalek?
That, by the way, has got to be the most wonderfully named episode of all time. Horse of Destruction.
Wow. Let me stop you, because I said about puns. So Dennis Spooner actually wrote other puns for the episodes, and the BBC vetoed them. So the episode 4 was originally called "Is There a Doctor in the Horse?" It's got which got vetoed by the BBC because they said no, we can't have that. So he did try and inject more humour into some of the titles. I think it was that was episode 1. I think it was either episode 2. I think it was episode 2 that they vetoed the title to as well, because it was another pun. So yeah, he did try to put that in. I like that. Is there a doctor in the horse? I think that's clever. No.
I do kind of like that magic of this. I don't know if we've discussed this on 1 and 2. I do quite like that each week has got a story title. Each episode's individually titled, because it's like one continuing sort of narrative, and within that, you also then don't know at what point the story, this setting stops being the story and you go somewhere else. So it just there isn't. This is the concluding part, and next week will be the next one. And they're all rolling into each other, aren't they? The stories are all continuing. It's like there's something quite sweet about that, and I like that. I sort of can see why Auntie B, when the titles dropped on the desk, might have raised an eyebrow, going, "Do you know what? I don't mind a hint of a pun, but this is still Saturday afternoon adventure here. We've got to play it straight."
You're not Monty Python. Just take it away and something.
I mean,
else.
Small profit, quick return, still fairly on the what's it, isn't it? Still,
Yeah, it is clever. There were some unhappy things going on during this story. So this is while they were filming this, William Hartnell's aunt died, who had been part of like his sort of looking after him when he was a child, and they were so busy with the filming he wasn't able to take any time off for the funeral, and he was really upset with that. Made worse by later on in the filming, he got clobbered by a camera as well. So he got hit with a camera and ended up with some bruising. So apparently this is when he started to think, I've just about come to the end of this. I'm not sure how much longer I can go. And Verity had gone by this point, because this is where you had John Wiles in. And I know that they did a sort of thing about that in the document, the one they did for the 50th Adventures in Time, wasn't it? In Space and Time, where he was quite upset that Verity was leaving, and he felt a little bit out of place, and he was quite unhappy with some of the co-stars because he felt that he was starting to get sort of marginalized, that they were bringing in other guest stars who were having more to say or more to do than he was. So this episode is the sort of start of that turning point for him, I think, in the fact that he was very unhappy by the time they got to the end of this story.
I think it's all about comfort blankets, isn't it? And I think William sort of, Verity had been there since the start. Verity was the only person by this point who had been with him since the start, and she was his producer, and that was the setup. And Maureen taking over from Caroline, that she sort of that worked, and it meant he's still got a family unit, and that's fine. And obviously when Jackie and William came to going, it was, well, he got on with Peter all right the other week. Peter would be a good choice to keep Mr. Hartnell happy. So he was obviously happy with this setup. The problem, I suppose, arises here is that John Wiles comes in and he's the new producer, and he wants to do his Doctor Who. And you do. It's pointless trying to say, for the next 6 months, I'm going to just do what Verity did or version of. You've got to try and take it somewhere else. But the first thing he does is sack Maureen. I mean, she doesn't get notice of this. It's awful when you sort of look at how she got back from holiday, the production block holiday, script on the doorstep, and she's gone. That's how she finds out. She doesn't say I'm leaving. She's gone. And so what he's got, I suppose, with this story is he's got, I mean, not only the thing, I mean, because he's a complicated man, and there's a lot of issues arising from the fact that he didn't have a father figure in that, and there's lots of, because of the stigma of the era in which he was born and brought up, there's a lot of sort of contained anger. If you sort of look at Jessica's book, she does discuss this sort of a lot about how his sort of childhood formed him, because the stigma of not having a father figure and all that. He's got that, and then so the aunt dying and not being able to say goodbye. He's just had Maureen sacked, so she's not happy, and if she's not happy doing this because she's just been sacked, he's not going to be happy. He's got a new producer that he's not a fan of. They didn't get on.
No.
So as soon as Mr. Wiles arrives, he's thinking, how can I get rid of Mr. Hartnell? There is a definite thing of, I don't know if I want Mr. Hartnell, because as we get later into the season, he's a bit more kind of, if he didn't come back for week 3 of the Celestial Torment, will anyone mind? Is this all right? So he's the first one to sort of think, can we do Doctor Who without Doctor Who? Can we change this? So I sort of think he's got so much going on, and it's brutal because William is the heart of this show. I mean, love the companions, love it, but it is his show. It is Doctor Who. I mean, they've just done a week. I mean, God, they've done a week's episodes without him. At what point would it be like, they've done a week of my show without me? My producers left. They've sacked my co-star. It's not a happy place. It's not a relaxed place. There's a lot of change, and I don't like change. I suspect in that instance he wasn't liking change, and that made him increasingly possibly paranoid, perhaps a bit uncomfortable with his surroundings. And it's not good. And I know in that instance, I suppose Peter tells a lot of stories about Max Adrian and William not getting on. Max Adrian obviously being gay, and then is it the question of is William, is there other issues relating to that or not relating to that, and other issues relating to him just not liking a guest star coming in with more confidence than he's got? Is he like, sorry, I'm Doctor Who, this is my show, I should be running this? If someone comes in and they're just running rings round, is that then a point where you're like, oh, God, this is awful, I don't like this. I'm a big film star and I'm doing this show and I don't like this now. This shouldn't be how it is. Is he just being made to feel increasingly less comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, it's well documented that it was a difficult time for him. And I do think, wasn't the illness starting to play a part at this stage as well, though?
Yeah, so his illness had started to impact on his ability to do all the filming and everything. So that was trickling along in the background.
It would have been a very unsettling time for him, though, particularly, obviously new brooms do come in and they want to sweep clean. And for all the points you've made there, P-Bal, you're absolutely right. He is the star of the show, but increasingly he would feel more sidelined as the John Wells era goes on. And therefore, that's not helping him on a personal level either.
I mean, on a positive note, I mean, I said about it's a good exit for Maureen. I think it's nicely played, and she gets the end sort of much. It's some nice bits of Peter as well. I think there's some nice Stephen stuff. And I mean, even within that, there's a bit where she says that she's got the feelings for Troilus, and he's a bit mocking, and then you think, oh God, he's going to be a dick, and then he goes, actually, if this is real, get out. That's quite nice. See? Not on vinyl though. It wasn't on vinyl. So yeah, so I think that's all nice played. I think there's some nice bits. I think you get some good character bits for Stephen within that as well. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Just wish we had the episodes.
Yeah, I honestly, again, we are consistently going to be saying this thing within a lot of the scores for this run. It's so difficult, but I think this is a story, possibly one of the top stories. I think if there were even just one episode, I think people would rave about it. I think people would absolutely love this one. And I think just because it's slightly... Galaxy 4 always feels to me, I know production block wise it is, it always feels like it's sort of the end of season 2, and I know it's not because it's a season, but it always feels like it's the last, in my mind it's the last one, and then you've sort of got mission to the own Dalek mask. So it's sort of in a strange position as well, where you don't quite even acknowledge it there. I mean, stellar cast. I mean, some great names in there as well, not just the aforementioned, but I mean, there are some really good names in that cast, and they're all absolutely romping with it.
But it's actually a large cast as well, isn't it? There are so many
It's huge.
people
When I was
involved
looking
in this
through,
production.
It was like extra, soldier, extra. There's a huge cast in this that get credit, which is
Mary Macmillan, who's a fish person, is a lady in the market in Troy. So I think it's worth shouting out the legend that was Mary Macmillan for being lady in the Troy market here, because she's also the fish person. She was a bit of an icon. So we had our facts for the
I have
Doctor.
one more for you. I was holding one back because we've been talking about Carry On films. So I've got one little tidbit for you, which is that Francis de Wolf wore the same costume in this as he does in Carry On Cleo.
I thought you said Carry On Cabby, then I was about to say, I don't.
No, that would have been no, it's the same costume that he wore in Carry On Cleo. So there is another Carry On connection.
I think just one thing that we haven't mentioned that we should, just before we score here, just Katarina has obviously come into this as the new. Well, she hasn't come into this, she's come into it, and she's sort of. I don't know. It's where are we at on Katarina? Because it's a really strange thing. Because normally within these narratives, there's some sort of notion that the character has had some main part in this, or a significant part in it. You can understand why they've stuck around all. I don't know, Isabel in The Invasion. If at the end of that she'd got in the TARDIS, you'd gone, oh, okay, I get this. This makes sense. Jenny in the Dalek Invasion of the Earth. It's very strange in some ways, the Katarina thing, because she isn't in it an awful lot, and then all of a sudden it's like my Jason impersonation. She's like this, and I'm in a temple, and it's like it's a bit you can literally see as she's arriving why she's got to go, and there's absolutely no reflection on Adrienne's acting, because she's playing the part and she's doing the part. She's doing an incredible job of the part, but it seems it's a really strange home goal to say take her for the next story, because it doesn't.
And she spends a lot of the next story just screaming.
Spoilers.
I know. We'll talk about that next time, but it is a really weird setup.
Agreed.
Imagine if they're taking Cassandra. Lads, that would have been great. She could have been prophesying, you're going to be the Daleks at the end of this. Like,
she would have been like the human equivalent of the time-space visualizer. Who are we going to meet next week? You're going to meet the Daleks. No, we're not. I bet we're not.
She could have stuck around for ages. Right, you're going to meet the Cyberman next week. Adric, not going to come back. Like, don't be stupid. And then the companions don't die. He's gone. Telling you. Joe, don't take the blue crystal. Just saying.
You're going to meet a sea devil that can jump 700 feet in the air onto a ship. No, I'm not.
Like, no, don't be ridiculous. She's mad. Oh my God, why didn't they keep Cassandra in the TARDIS? She'd have been amazing. Well, we'll do Katarina next time, I think. I think it's probably fairer, because she isn't here for a long time, or a good time, is she, to be fair. So we'll do Cassandra in our Dalek Master Plan epic then. Okay. So shall we score Doctor Who and the Mythmakers?
Yeah. Go on. I don't mind going first on this one. And there are elements of it, as you said sort of at the beginning, that are clever. There is an attempt at humour. Just listening to the audio doesn't really do it justice, and I think a bit like you said about the Romans. If you just listen to the Romans, all those scenes where Barbara's being chased around by Nero and things like that, you just wouldn't really pick that up on the audio. It's the visual humour and the facial expressions and everything else. So to not have any of that, it does knock this story. And so I really struggled with scoring, but I did give it. I don't think it. I think if you had one episode, it would probably shoot up. But I did give this story 6.5. Because it's not, even though we don't have it, it's not a bad story, but it's difficult to engage with without the visual.
Yeah, I agree. I think when I approach the scoring for this one, there's two scores essentially, because there's the score. If we had it, we were able to watch it, I think I would hold it in a higher regard. But it's not a bad story. It's actually good on a number of levels. The humor in it's actually, I think it's well handled. I think the scripting's pretty tight on this one. It's got, I think it would have epic proportions, I think, in its visuals that we just don't get. So I'm a bit torn on the score on this one, because kind of I feel that my score would be a lot higher if I could actually watch it, but it would be unfair to mark a story down because the visuals aren't there. So I think for this one, I am going to probably err on the lower side of the scores, just because I must admit, I just found, I did go through the loose cannon recon to watch this one. And, whilst I can get some of the humor in it, it's lacking because I don't have the visual to attach to it. So my score for the Mythmakers is going to come in at 5.5. If we'd had visuals, I think it would have been a lot higher.
I think we're going to be shot down in a second.
Oh my days. Hang on, if that's the lower end. I dread to think what you think you'd be giving it with visuals. Oh, I'd love to see it all. I'd give it a 6 if I could see it. 5.5. When the EBU discounted certain voting because of irregularity for the Eurovision, was last week for us. I'm just wondering whether we need some kind of moderating thing that takes Jason's scores out of this and just adjust them upwards. 12 points from Jason go to Annette. Okay. Oh. Gosh. I think it's incredible. I think I can't go the whole hog on it because I can't see it, but I really, really like this. I think it's really intelligent. I think if you enjoy it, engage with it, have a look at some of the influences around it, have a look at some stories behind it, and I think you get extra depth from that. Lots of fantastic performances. I think Mr. Hartnell is slightly stepped back in this. I think he hasn't got as much to deal with it, but there are so many other people that they're picking up the bat. I gave Doctor Who and the Mythmakers 9.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah. Stick that in your wooden horse. It's a really, really good story. And I think if anyone at home hasn't really experienced it, get it on there. Even if you just listen to, headphones. That's headphones, folks. Just listen to an episode a night or something, because if it's too much to sit and do an episode a night. Just listen to it. It's very, very well done. Very intelligent. Well, thank goodness for P-Bal scoring, because that has saved. That has saved. Unlike the Ukrainian televote, I've swerved the victory round here. I've swerved it round. That brings Doctor Who and the Mythmakers in at 21.
Oh,
they're trying to think: is that more or less?
That's the leader, isn't it? Now
that is our leader.
It has galloped into the lead.
Oh, there'll be some outcry about that.
Well, there will be for your tardy scores, you miserable pair of old Marys. I think there will.
Hashtag justice for the horse of destruction.
Is that your new nickname?
I just think it's a really good episode title.
So anyway, folks, we shall be back. Our next episode is Dance Master Plan only. But anyway, thank you for enjoying. Like, subscribe, put comments, put thoughts, the usual. And we'll see you soon.